Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Rocky Mountain Public Media and the Buell Media Center. I'm Dan Diamond. I'm the Senior Vice President of Partnerships, and I want to personally thank you all for taking the time to be here today to discuss this very important topic that's becoming far too much of a reality for many of our neighbors here in Colorado. The Rocky Mountain Public Media family is really a family that's much larger than I think people realize. We're the largest statewide media organization in Colorado. We're supported by over 120,000 members, and we reach 99% of the state. And for that reason, we feel it's our obligation and our responsibility to create the types of partnerships as we have with Xcel Energy to inform and educate our communities about the real issues that are going on that affect their lives, and provide them with resources and educational opportunities and the tools they need to better prepare and live their best lives and support their neighbors. And so we really are grateful that you're all here. And for those of you in the audience today that I can see are in the firefighting service, and we appreciate and thank you for your service and all that you do to keep us safe. This began as an opportunity with Xcel Energy to create what we call Partners in Prevention, really to connect Coloradans with the vital information they need and the resources they need, and to also take away some of the fear of what is becoming the new reality that we all live in, not just in Colorado, but across the Western United States with respect to wildfires. And I cannot thank our partners at Xcel Energy enough for their generous support and also their commitment to ensuring that we create a safer, much more stable, and less feared lifestyle in Colorado with respect to wildfires. We want to make certain that children and their families know what to do in these circumstances and are also understanding that it isn't something other than just the new realities of what we live in based on a number of factors that you'll hear about today. So I want to welcome our distinguished panel today. We are very fortunate to have, starting on my immediate left, is our moderator today, and she's also our journalism director, Gabriela Resto-Montero. And Gabriela is, as you'll see, quite an amazing moderator, and if you get a chance to see any of the work she and her team do on RMPBS News, you'll really be informed and better educated about what's going on all across our state. Next to Gabriela is Alan Salazar. He's the CEO and manager of Denver Water. Alan, thank you for being here. We're very fortunate to have Matthew Mueller here. Matthew is the Executive Director of Emergency Management for the City and County of Denver. Then Mina Bolton, who's the Emergency Services Coordinator from the Glenwood Springs Fire Department, who took very valuable time to travel all the way here to be here today to discuss this important topic. Thank you so much, Mina. Robert Kenney, the President of Xcel Energy Colorado. Robert, thank you again for being here and for all your organization's support. And Travis Michels, meteorologist from Fox 31, who is also a climatologist and really is going to, I think, give you a perspective on the why, from a climate perspective, this is occurring and what we can do about it. And with that, I will turn it over to our moderator, Gabriela. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for that setup. I want to manage your expectations, but I think we're going to have a good conversation here about the wildfire season. I'm just going to take a second to kind of set the scene. We all live in Colorado, and we know what this winter has been like, but I just wanted to take a second here to let us know exactly what it's been like. So we're in, I'm sure, Travis, I'm just going to take your job for 1 second. Because of the La Nina phenomenon, Colorado's had the warmest, driest winter in 132 years. The Bushy Ridge fire in Mesa County, as of yesterday, was 50% contained. Many Coloradans are kind of bracing for what we all anticipate to be a very active wildfire season. And last week, Governor Polis activated the state's drought task force for the first time since 2020, with 38 counties in Colorado at D2 level, which is severe drought. So despite those realities, I think this conversation is really about the prevention side of it, the preparation of all of it, and the partnerships that are going to help us all kind of get through this time. So thank you all for being here. And I just kind of, with that in mind, I did want to start off with what are some of the ways that this changing nature of the wildfire risk in the state has affected your organizations and the work that you're doing to alert the public and to prepare the public. It's pretty broad, but I think it's a good establishing of where we're all at in our respective areas. So I'm looking right at you, so I'm going to kick it over to you, and you can let us know.
For sure. I work for Fox 31. I work for Channel 2 here in Denver, and a big thing that we have to deal with is letting you guys know that when we have the red flag warnings that are issued, and the National Weather Service has changed some of their standards of how they call those because they understand that our situation is different than it was previously, and the reasons why they called red flag warnings or fire weather warnings in the past have changed, and we need to be more vigilant. We need to stay on top of that more. So they've adjusted that. That's now down to wind gusts up to 25 miles an hour for 3 hours and relative humidity down to about 15%. And my job is to express to the people out there that are watching us that, hey, this is a danger today. This is the areas that need to be, vigilant, need to stay on top of it. And we can do little simple actions to not have any fires start, and then we can, get through the day and be fine with that. And there's times that the winds are higher, and there's times that the relative humidity is lower, and the fire danger is much greater of a threat. And then that's when we elevate that and let the public know, hey, you got to pay even more attention. And then if it gets to a point where, Xcel says, hey, we need to take preventive shutoffs, we need to explain that to the public. And I think it's a key thing to explain that it is a safety thing. It is all about the safety of the people. We want to make sure that we have homes to go back to. We want to make sure we have communities to enjoy, and our friends and our family are there. And I understand it is an inconvenience for sure, and it's not a fun thing to, have to deal with these constantly. But I think part of my job is to try to, remind the folks, hey, it's okay. We can get through this. We've done this multiple times before, and we'll continue to do this as we head through the next few months. But we got to stay on top of it. And I think that's an important thing for the public to know, that they got to, be vigilant too.
I think over to you, Robert. I'm sure, as representing of Xcel, that the public is a lot more alert about these kinds of changes. They're paying a lot more attention than they would otherwise. So has that also affected how you're thinking about messaging and how you're thinking about communicating with people?
Absolutely. First of all, let me say thanks for having us here, and we really value the partnership with Rocky Mountain PBS. I see partners from Red Cross and United Way in the audience as well, and our first responders. So thank you all for being here. Thanks for your partnership. As much as we work to educate the public about why we're doing the things that we're doing, we do need your help. And this is why this venue and this forum is so important. I'd say, so yes, it has increased how we communicate with the public, what we're communicating with them about. Our industry is about 150 years old or more, and historically, we know how to keep the lights on. It's very much not in the DNA of utility companies to turn the lights off. And so it's something we don't take lightly. It's something we use only in the most extreme weather circumstances. But that is a different way that we have to communicate with our customers now. So we're communicating about proactive de-energizations. We're communicating about emergency preparedness more broadly. The other things that we're doing differently that we haven't historically done, we're building capabilities that didn't exist, say, 5 years ago. We have a whole meteorological department. I like to say that our meteorologists actually are doing better than National Weather Service sometimes.
Hey, yeah, for them it's cool.
We're doing better than you guys sometimes too. And we're building a team of meteorologists internally that are able to predict and forecast the weather in ways that we haven't historically had to do. So turning power off, building capabilities that we haven't historically had, and then assessing risk differently. We make investments in our infrastructure based upon a risk prioritization, but now we have a different risk that we have to include in that. And that's the impact of climate, and it's the impact of wildfires. And so it's changing very drastically in different ways how we conduct our business.
And in terms of emergency management, there are obvious implications there. Have you also found that there have been some changes in how you're preparing, Mina?
In my role at Glenwood Springs Fire, I conduct wildfire home risk assessments for community members who are interested in reducing structure ignition on their house. So with that, I meet with homeowners and we look for vulnerabilities around their structure. We do a 360 assessment of their structure as well as surrounding vegetation. And we know how structures burn, right? Have you guys turned on the news and seen, oh, a dozen homes were lost? Hundreds, thousands of homes were lost. So we know how structures burn. We have the tried and true science-backed recommendations to give homeowners on what to do to increase the survivability of a wildfire. And this is all super overwhelming for all of us, including homeowners. So it's important for homeowners to understand the risk that we all live in, and also to understand their responsibility. Because homeowners are the only people that have the authority to work on their property. And so it's my goal that they understand where to start. Because we know that the first step is the hardest step to take, but the second step is easier. And so we need the community's partnership to take action, because we know that mitigation works when done at scale, but we need to work together.
Thank you so much. We recently had a documentary about home insurance and wildfire risks, and the homeowners who had mitigated their home did not lose their home in a fire. And seeing that happen at scale on a county basis, I think, is a major departure from where we've been before. So thank you for that. I'd like to pose the question to you, Matthew, about how this has affected kind of how you're thinking about structures and
Well, thank you so much for having me here today with some of these colleagues. So within the city and county of Denver, the downtown area where we are now, wildfire is not something that we largely had prepared for. We thought more about flooding and hazardous materials and certainly human-caused disasters. Certainly for our colleagues in Boulder, Jefferson County, Douglas County, this is a much more common occurrence. The Marshall Fire really changed that, and how close that got to the urban core really forced us to change how we look at wildfire within the city and county of Denver. I would also note as well, Robert kind of alluded to the public safety power shutoffs, which is a newish tool to us in Colorado and California. They've been doing them for years with that, and so that has forced us to change a bit how we plan the impacts to critical infrastructure like our water systems. Our hospital systems, all of those things, and in being mindful of those impacts to the community with that as well. And then the final piece, I think, for Denver, the big one is mass evacuation planning. Again, something that we would consider, say, if the Cherry Creek Dam failed or if we had a hazardous materials release, but we hadn't really thought about it in terms of wildfire, but the necessity is now here.
how about you?
Well, first of all, I'm honored to be here with this distinguished panel. I'm not an expert, but I'm fortunate to work with experts at Denver Water. Climate, drought, wildfire are not new occurrences for Denver Water. A little bit about Denver Water, just for those who don't know. We not only serve the city of Denver with clean drinking water, but we have a service area that is beyond the city of Denver, regional water utilities. So our responsibility is to make sure that 1.5 million people, when they turn on their tap, that water comes out, clean drinking water comes out. Our customers, I'm sure, to some extent take that for granted, as they should. We want to be a reliable utility for their needs. And they probably know that the water gets to the tap in reservoirs that Denver Water manages. What they may not know and may not appreciate is that the reservoirs are not our big reservoir. Our big reservoir is Mother Nature and the watersheds that collect snowpack and provide some predictability for water supply. I used to, before I worked for Denver Water, I'm not really a water lawyer, nor am I an engineer. I'm a government guy, so bear that in mind. But I used to work for a member of Congress, Chief of Staff for Congressman Mark Udall, who was very much an advocate of policy direction around climate change. And he used to say something that has stuck with me. He said, "Alan, Mother Nature bats last," meaning that you have to work with nature. You have to be aware of the challenges of nature, and you have to align with the rhythms of the natural environment. Fortunately, Denver Water has had that view long before I got there. The organization has taken catastrophic wildfire seriously in a big way since the 1996 Buffalo Creek Fire, the 2002 Hayman Fire, which some of you may remember. At the time, we were dependent on the resources of the U.S. Forest Service and the state. Denver Water ratepayers made a commitment with the Denver Water leadership at the time in 2010 to enter into a collaborative partnership with the U.S. Forest Service, subsequently involving the state and other partners, to put money on the table. Denver Water ratepayers have done this since 2010 in a program we call From Forests to Faucets, making the connection between watersheds and water supply. That collaborative partnership has been responsible for about $96 million worth of effort to mitigate and manage healthy forests. Work's not done. The problem is huge. And so I'm really thankful for the opportunity to describe not only Denver Water's mission, but what other water utilities and other collaborative partnerships can do to meet this challenge, because it's only going to get more challenging.
That's a perfect segue into where I want to head in terms of, I mean, and Mina, you touched on this as well, about some of the unknowns, like homeowners don't know that they have responsibility in this as well, that they can take proactive steps. This partnership with the U.S. Forest Service. My question to all of you, and you can, take turns answering, is, what are some of the dynamics that you feel are not necessarily understood by the public that might be more empowering to them in order to protect themselves, protect their homes, be prepared, all of those things? What are some of the dynamics that you feel are not very well understood? And then what are some key partnerships? You mentioned the Forest Service, you mentioned other water utilities that really provide the network of support and response in Colorado that people should be looking out for.
All right, I'll go.
I'm sorry. I should have just pointed.
I'll start with the last first about partnerships, because I think I alluded to this earlier. We have a really strong partnership with United Way, 211 service that they provide. We have a strong partnership with the Red Cross, and the Red Cross provides amazing services during emergencies, generally speaking, as we have had to conduct public safety power shutoffs. We've been able to partner with the Red Cross so that when communities need it, we can set up customer resource centers so they can come and charge their phones, they can come and get water. We know that being without power it's more than an inconvenience. It can be a hardship for some, and so we want to lessen that hardship. So that's one partnership that I think is very important. And then obviously our first responders and the work that they do. Something that I would want communities to know, and this is, utilities have gotten a lot of the attention most recently with respect to wildfires, but most wildfires, something like 90% of them, are caused by humans. We are entering into wildfire season. Actually knows no season. It's year round now. And the drought situation is persisting. It's going to be really hot this summer. We have an obligation as citizens and residents to do the things that we need to do to not start wildfires. So making sure that your campfires are put out, making sure that you're not throwing lit cigarettes out the window. I don't even know if people still smoke.
It's just e-cigs.
Yeah. So that most wildfires are human caused, and therefore we have a responsibility to make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do. Mina talked about home preparedness, defensible space around your own home, not only to lower your insurance costs, but just to make sure that you are taking steps to protect yourself. Having an emergency preparedness plan. So there's a lot that we can do, and the partnership that we have with Rocky Mountain PBS is designed exactly to do that, to help educate the public at large.
I mean, when we talk about partnerships, I think it's more along the lines of like all of you guys and like letting us know that, hey, there's evacuation orders in this area. They're, hearing from you, hey, we're doing planned shutoffs in this area. And I think a big thing for us is to portray that to the public, let them know, get them informed as much as possible. I think information is key as we go through the next few months, because knowing where the issues can start, where they stem from, and if we can prevent that, I think that's huge. I mean, you mentioned snowpack. I mean, I don't want to be like a numbers guy, but I'm a numbers guy. I mean, like we're at like 22% of the average snowpack right now. The peak is supposed to happen on like April 9th. That's like in a week and a half from now. And we are a third of the worst snowpack ever on record in the last like 40 years. And like in the southwestern corner, it's in like the singlest percentiles, like 8 and 9%. That is horrendous. We don't see that. And not a good thing also, because you're talking water. We need that. And the best way to have that is to have the snow slowly melt and absorb wonderfully into the soil. Sadly, we're not having that because it's so hot. We're evaporating a lot of that snow, and that goes into the atmosphere and does not go into our soil, does not go into our reservoirs. So I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but like it's not a good looking start to our season. And the climate outlook is also warm and dry for us. But again, I think that's why we're here, is so that we can take those preventative steps and get that information to the public and out to people, so we don't have issues that we
No, this
could
is
have.
real. We need hard realism.
Yes, this is not good, guys.
We have to face the facts here. That's how you can take the steps that you need to take. I'll kick it over to you, Mina.
Sure. I'll just note that fire departments, we're training all year round. We're preparing all year round, because exactly like you said, it's not fire season, it's fire year. And shout out to fire departments. There are fires that they are playing whack-a-mole with all year round. You don't hear about them. You're not getting an evacuation notice because they're doing such a great job. But we are going to have a massive wildfire. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so being prepared is critical. Preparedness is the emergency. We are not going to suppress our way out of this situation. And so it's so important that you prepare yourself. And like it was mentioned, make sure you're getting the notifications you need. Make sure you know your evacuation routes. Make sure you've got your bag planned. Make sure your family is prepared, your pets. Are you financially prepared? And then make sure your home is prepared. We know that these actions are effective. We just need the community to work together. Go talk to your neighbors, get involved in your community. Go talk to your local fire department to get a professional home assessment.
Is that something that is readily available around the state?
Our fire department offers complimentary home assessments, and I think a lot of fire departments do. I would recommend you talk to your local authorities. I'm sure that there is something similar, if not even more specific, available. And I also think that every property deserves a customized home assessment. Just because you have wood siding on your house doesn't mean it's a lost cause. There are other things that can be done. Moving vegetation away from a structure can equate to heat loss over a relatively short distance, and this can have huge payoff without resiting your home. And so really getting a professional assessment, I can't stress it enough. I think it's really beneficial.
Thank you.
When we talk about changing dynamics, I think, one of the things we mentioned this year is absolutely exceptional in terms of the lack of moisture that we have seen. But the increase in temperatures is not a new thing. That has been going on, obviously, for quite a while. The thing that astounded me is the wind. And we actually had the National Weather Service run some data for us. In Denver, the number of days that trigger high wind warnings, particularly out eastern part near the airport, has tripled over the last 10 years. Tripled. And so when you combine all those things, lack of moisture, the high heat, and the winds in particular, it is not a great recipe. And many of those things are here to stay. One of the other things in terms of the partnerships I want to call out, and we have some folks in the audience that are emergency managers, the critical role that emergency management plays, particularly when we talk about alert and warning, when we talk about evacuation, and particularly for the metro area where if people need to evacuate, they may be going across jurisdictional lines in trying to ensure that those other communities are prepared to accept them, making sure even things like the siren tones that people may hear from door-to-door notification, that there's a commonality with that. The messaging around evacuation order or warning, is that well understood, and is it common across the entirety of the metro area? So shout out to my colleagues and all the great work that they're doing in that space.
There are two big buckets of work that have to happen, and my colleagues on the panel have talked about the work that emergency responders do, and that we hope homeowners will engage in to deal with the problem when fire occurs, protecting lives and structures and property. But the other bucket of work is getting the forests in a better and a healthier state, meaning that the Forest Service, State Forest Service, volunteer efforts, conservation organizations, water utilities, put resources behind making the forests healthier. What does that mean? It means cutting down some trees, means doing some thinning, means managing the forest floor better than we have done up till now. So I have a mea culpa story that always gets me into trouble, so now it's going to go out across the state. But when I started in public life, I worked for a United States senator, and one of the things I did was write comments on forest plans. This is back in the, I'm not going to go with the date because I don't want to go live those days back, but it was in the 1980s. And the ethic at the time, particularly in the environmental community, I consider myself a strong environmentalist, was to clamp down on the Forest Service's practice of cutting down trees. And the narrative at the time was that the Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service, was cutting down trees in order to support a timber industry in the state. And they weren't really thinking about the environmental impacts. That was the broad statement. And so I was writing comments on national forest plans with the view of working against the Forest Service doing that kind of work. Full circle, probably the wrong thing to do. Because what we have learned is that you want management of our Forest Service or of our national forests and forest lands. And the U.S. Forest Service plays a role, the state forest does as well. So we no longer have a viable timber industry in the state of Colorado. It's a real problem. Put on top of that the bark beetle issue and the beetle infestation, insect issues, on top of climate. And I think the environmental community is understanding that some of the attitudes from the 1980s no longer make sense. So I think there's a collaborative approach now, and that talk about collaborations, to put resources into making the forests healthier so that when wildfire does occur, either naturally or through human activity, it's not as catastrophic. That's where Denver Water is putting its effort and time and attention. We also do some emergency response training and work in that space. But I guess the main point, and I don't want to belabor it too much, is we really do need to put more resources, human resources as well as money, into managing our national forests more effectively.
Thank you for that. I appreciate a mea culpa. We never stop learning, and it's important to know where we've gone wrong. I've heard all of you say that in some degrees, obviously professionally, organizationally, you can take many mitigation efforts, many mitigation steps. However, there is a point at which the public needs to bear some sort of responsibility. Robert, you mentioned, like something like 80% of the wildfires or 90% are caused by humans. All of this. And the human behavior part, when you put in drought restrictions and people have to start making different choices, or there are power cutoffs, or you can't have fires, all of those things is always a big question mark. And I'm wondering, in terms of wildfire mitigation and the steps that all of your departments and organizations have taken, what are some of the other benefits that has brought to communities that maybe people have experienced or they are more familiar with, that can also let them know that this is actually one big ecosystem. When you do this, when you use this best practice, it impacts this fire preparedness or what have you. I'm thinking now like a journalist and how you would pitch it to the public that they should care about wildfire mitigation. So the meteorologist, who is the face of this for the public, can kick us off.
I think a key thing that we need to work with our public is education is a big thing, and that's something that I try to do on a regular basis. And I apologize to my viewers. I'm going to say the same thing as I've said the last few days, but I got to repeat myself that yes, this is going to take all of us working together to not have any issues. This is going to take all of us working together to take the steps that we're supposed to take, because we're in an environment, I know that meteorologically, just is not a great environment to be in for wildfires. I mean, just like the foothills, just in general, you get a downsloping wind. It's a warming, drying process. It happens all the time, and that is horrible, because that is a drying process, it's a warming, and it's a windy process, and these things are not going to get better for us. I think educating the public is key about that, and we got to stay on top of it. But I'm kind of with you guys. It's there's going to be a point, I feel where one person makes a mistake, and that's all it's going to take for us to have a major issue or a major fire. And then the goal is hopefully that we've taken some of those preparatory actions, so we don't have as big of a fire, as bad of a situation that it could be. But yeah, I'm a little concerned about where we're headed.
I would just like to point out that I don't think that a fire in the forest is the catastrophe. The intention behind mitigation and preparedness is that our homes and our communities will withstand a wildfire. So we need to let the forest managers do their best work and manage the forests and those fires. Meanwhile, we need to do our best work, and we need to manage our properties, and we need to be prepared. Like we've all said, it's coming. We don't know when. And so there is urgency to act today, to start today. I can't stress that enough.
That's something that I'm from the East Coast, so I'm used to hurricanes and evacuations and that mindset, and people are ready for that because that's something that happens constantly every season, kind of a thing. And I think that's something that we haven't had enough of an experience with. I hate to say that, where it's we all need to be prepared to be ready to go. And I like the idea of a go bag emergency plan and then a couple plans, because not always one exit route is going to be the answer for you.
Yeah, the idea that you're prepared no matter what, that you're not relying on the public acting perfectly all the time. We are preparing for the inevitability of somebody not putting out their campfire or what have you, and then, taking the steps that we've practiced so there's no panic. Yeah.
You asked about other benefits. Yeah. Last year, I was able to tour an area called the Trumbull Forest Restoration area with my friend Matt McCombs, who is with the state and probably the preeminent expert on state efforts. He should be on the panel here, not me. But what was cool about this, it's an area, I think in Douglas County and Jefferson County, primarily in Douglas County, if my memory serves me right. So work began there many years ago to make that area more resistant to wildfire. Some of the benefits that came from that collaboration, young people starting their careers in natural resource management, Colorado Youth Corps doing work there. So you have a job component and a professional experience component, which was very exciting. And the area is now a better recreation area. It's thriving. It's not only more resilient, but it's actually a positive benefit to the landscape. Now, what's a water utility care about that? Well, we care deeply because the impacts of catastrophic wildfire hit our infrastructure in ways that you might not imagine. Sediment that goes into our reservoirs becomes a water quality problem that can last for years. So I guess the ancillary benefit or the positive of doing this work also is that you're creating some work experiences and you're also making the state more beautiful.
And, oh, sorry, go ahead. No.
So another benefit, and this is, putting on your journalism hat, putting on my marketing and sales hat. We make these investments. We talk a lot about the public safety power shutoffs, but we're also making significant investments strengthening and hardening our infrastructure to prevent a fire from happening in the first instance. Things that consumers are doing to their homes, defensible space, if you've got different roof materials, all of that's going to bring down your insurance costs. And that's a tangible, practical benefit that customers will realize by doing the things for their own home. But then the work that we're doing, and there was a law that was passed last year to require insurance companies to take into account when they're underwriting and pricing the work that we're doing. So the work that we're doing is not only going to protect the public, from the consequence or from prevent a wildfire from happening in the first instance, but it should help to bring down the cost of their insurance premiums as well.
The example that you just gave is also thinking about the long term. And so I want to pose to each one of you, if we're thinking 5 or 10 years down the road, we have managed this mammoth wildfire that's headed our way. Are we heading in the right direction? Are we taking the steps now that looking back in 5 or 10 years from now, we will have been grateful to have taken?
I'll start with this one. So you heard my comment earlier about the wind, and don't foresee that changing, and the increase in temperatures and in all of that. The level of moisture, I think maybe TBD, hopefully not as bad as it's been this year, but still, these things are going to stay with us, and so it is essential that we plan for them longer term. I think, in Denver, you heard me mention evacuation planning. That's something that in an urban area, dense urban area, it's not as simple as saying, okay, just get in the car and take the one road out with all that. You have interstates, you have contraflow, you have all sorts of other challenges, people with access and functional needs that need to have assistance in getting out. And so I think that is one of the things when we think about evacuation planning, as well as, frankly, sheltering in place and what it takes to shelter in place and what people need at their homes for 72 hours or more. That's something that we are going to be leaning into. We are working as we speak on the city's first mass evacuation plan. We are doing exercises this summer and trying to drill that into our city staff that this is what the future is going to look like. We hope we don't have to do it, but we need to be ready for it.
So I think I'd say wildfire risk is not going away, and it's increasing. We talked a bit about lessons that we've learned from California. Even within California, the risk in Southern California was different than it was in Northern California until it wasn't. And now that risk is moving east, so it's not shrinking, it's growing. So the things that we're doing today are absolutely going to benefit us 5, 10, 15 years from now. I mean, what we do as an energy company, we provide electrons, we provide gas molecules. But in addition to that, we build infrastructure. And we build transmission lines, we build distribution lines, we build generating facilities. These are all 40, 50-year assets. And so things that we're building today, we're building them to be able to anticipate what we think is a growing risk. And so we're replacing small diameter wire with larger conductor that can withstand heavier winds. We are replacing some wood poles with composite poles and fiberglass poles that are burn resistant and that are also wind resistant. And we are doing targeted undergrounding. We get a lot of questions about why not put everything underground. And 52% of our infrastructure actually already is underground. It's difficult in Colorado because of rocky terrain and mountainous terrain to put everything underground. But we are doing that where it makes the most sense, where we think it will reduce the most risk. But we're doing a whole host of other wildfire mitigation efforts that we think are absolutely the right things to do. Creating these partnerships, more education, all of that is absolutely going to serve us well 5, 10, 20 years from now.
Yeah, I think your question goes to what more needs to be done and how big is the problem. And more bad news. As much as we are doing, we're not committing enough money and people to this problem in Colorado. About 2 years ago, Denver Water convened a dialogue with the business community in Denver. We had the Denver Chamber of Commerce. We had a number of other organizations visit Denver, the tourist agency for the city. The point of the meeting was to get the business community to understand here in the metro area that this is not someone else's problem. This will affect the economic stability of Colorado. It affects our not just public health, but it actually has a significant economic impact. Therefore, the state needs to make it a priority as an economic issue and a quality of life issue. And there simply is not enough money or people power to do it because you have to scale up at exponential rates. The other piece of bad news is the U.S. Forest Service has been a great partner, but they're under stress now as well. So shrinking public dollars, greater public need is part of our challenge.
I don't want you to have all the bad news. I got some for you too. And like we're going to talk climatologically. In the last like 20 years, we've been tracking wildfires. Obviously, NASA's done a great project with that. And while the wildfires remain about the same for the number, the amount of acres that are burning are like doubling and tripling and exemplifying quite a bit. And we're seeing this as the climate is changing in the sense that we're getting much more extremes for a longer amount of times. Sure, I don't mind if it rains a lot. That's great. But if it's just raining, that's not going to be a positive thing. I mean, the East Coast has been cold for the entire winter for the most part, but we have been dry and warm. But we've been stuck in this trend. And from what we're seeing is not going to see improvements. We're going to continue to deal with these kind of like extreme long drought conditions or like a very wet winter, which is great, but then it may dry out. And then all that, is fuel for fires because all the vegetation grew kind of a thing. So I'm not a great predictor of 10 years out with weather. I'm good for about 3 to 5 days, maybe 7. But like the way things are headed though, and the way we're seeing things is that the climate's not going to necessarily help us with that. So we have to take the actions because, Mother Nature's going to bat last.
Can I say one more thing? Because
Yes.
you guys are kind of being Debbie Downers. I'll say something that is constructive and positive is that we do have a lot of smart people. And one partnership that I didn't necessarily touch on is that we've got some great universities here in town as well. And because you talked about downslope wind events, and my colleagues have heard me say these downslope wind events are the bane of our existence because they're hard to predict. But we've got meteorological talent, we've got university talent, we have human ingenuity, I think, that will continue to evolve and will help us solve these problems. I'm convinced we can predict downsloping wind events.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Let's get this going.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing that actually provides me some assurance and some feelings of hope is that we've got the right people with the right intellect and the right capabilities that we can solve these problems. And it's not a lack of capability. I do think we need more monetary and human resources, but we're raising the level of consciousness around this in a way that I haven't seen. I worked in California. We've been able to learn from what California's done, but I think we're ahead by leaps and bounds of where some of our other states are by virtue of the fact that we're doing things like this.
I'm going to give Mina the last word, and I'm going to ask you, if you get to change someone's mind about wildfire preparation, mitigation, you can change their mind about one thing. What is it?
What you do today is probably going to be what matters most during an emergency incident. And we don't know when that's coming. And so the urgency to start today and really prepare yourself, prepare your family, and prepare your home. We know it works.
Thank you all so much. That brings our panel conversation to a close, but we are going to open it up to the audience for audience questions for a Q&A. So round of applause for our distinguished guests. Thank you. I guess Sarah's got the mic. You're all professionals in this field.
So kind of to what you're just talking about, being the bearer of bad news, but I think no, I'm not going there, sorry. No, I think to what Robert was saying is that we do have like the data, we do have smart people. So I was kind of curious on the other side of things, what type of weather data, I know Travis, obviously different, but what type of weather data do you use in your everyday life and operations?
Great question.
So I'll say as a utility, we've long had in-house meteorologists that we use for commercial operations to plan, because we have wind farms, for instance. So we have meteorological talent in-house that's helping us to know how to dispatch our resources, to help us understand what the heat's going to be like so we can understand what electric demand is going to be. We're building a different sort of capability in-house with meteorological data so that we can predict wind speeds, relative humidity, and dry fuels on the ground. Those are the criteria that we use when we're determining whether we are going to execute a public safety power shutoff or whether we're going to maintain our system in what we call wildfire safety operations. That's where we just change the sensitivity on our infrastructure. So we need to be able to know more than 12 hours in advance because we want to be able to give our customers and our communities advance notification if we're going to have to conduct a PSPS. And so our meteorological team is looking 3, 5, 7, 10 days out. And we get a report every single day that will tell us what the wind conditions are going to look like, what the relative humidity is, what the dry fuels on the ground are. And so we're looking at that on a multi-day basis, and that's how we're making decisions about how we're going to operate our infrastructure. And the reason that's important is because, we conducted our first PSPS event in April of 2024.
Real quick, what's PSPS?
Sorry, public safety power shutoffs. Thank you. Those are our proactive de-energizations when we see the most extreme weather events. And we made a commitment that we were going to give our customers and our communities advance notice. We can only do that if we have the right data to do it. So we strive to give our offices of emergency management in our counties 72 hours advance notice, critical pieces of infrastructure. For customers that are medically sensitive, access and functional need customers, we want to give them 48 hours notice. And so to be able to give as much advance notice as possible, we have to have as much data as possible.
I think someone here mentioned some specific apps or something. Is there anything like that? Like, is there? I'm sorry. Is there anything like a wildfire tracker app that people are on, or anything like that?
I know NASA has some tools like through a website. I don't know if it's an app necessarily, but they have like true satellite imagery and then where the wildfires are and looped around kind of a thing.
We have internal things that we use. We have wildfire mapping, but then we use a whole host of different data, and I will very quickly exceed my knowledge of all the different databases that we use, but it's a lot.
I just have a couple of comments. It's great to hear that you guys are spending so much energy on this, because as fire professionals, we know the fuels, we know how they burn, we know the topography. These are all known things. The variable is the weather. And so it's really, underscores the importance that you guys are doing that. Asking about an app, I paused. I think probably most of you know that Watch Duty is an app that, while it's not official information, does have a lot of up-to-date information. So I would just encourage you to verify information on there. But
yeah, that's something that we think about a lot here. As Dan mentioned, we broadcast all across Colorado, and we're the emergency response communicator there. And when we think about how many people have TVs anymore, how are you going to reach these folks with emergency information? So I'm sorry I went so specific with the app, but it was just like, wait, where are the people, and how would you let them know in an emergency in a broadcast system way? Or how could they track something over time that is high quality, good information?
I just want to quickly point out that Denver Water also has a fair amount of expertise around weather forecasting and snow forecasting and scenario planning around climate. And we're responsible for thinking about the water supply for not 1.5 million people, but 1.8 million people over the next 50 years. So we don't have Travis on the payroll, but we have a lot of wonderful people who speak just like he does about the challenge of climate. Water Resource Strategy team I'm really proud of, and they're the real experts.
I would be remiss. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Mueller, Regional CEO of the Red Cross. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Red Cross app. There is an emergency app, and we often have our shelters located on there. You can find out what's going on in your area by zip code and area. You can look up a family member across the country to find out if they're safe. But when we do open a shelter, a list, is it pet friendly? What are the hours? All of those things. So definitely check that out. The emergency app.
That's really
for Red
great.
Cross.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Would it be okay if I address the alert and warning piece again? I think one of the key things we've learned in emergency management is it is a system of systems. You can't rely on any one single alerting technology. So if I would implore people to do anything, one is make sure the wireless emergency alerts on your phone are enabled for local alerts. Just because you got too many of those Amber Alerts and you want to shut it off, don't do it. keep it active on that. But it's more than that. It is a lot of the counties have their own alerting that you can sign up for, an opt-in system. Some use outdoor warning sirens. Most people think of them for tornadoes, but you can actually use them for any purpose with that. And then even things like NOAA radios and the old school emergency alert system as it scrolls across on news stations and on the radio. All of those are important in having that redundancy and backup.
Thank you. That's a really great point. I was going to ask you, Travis, about this, just to maybe, I want to fact check something that I saw about the La Nina phenomenon and how that might mean that next winter we might actually have a heavier snowfall than average because of the cycle itself. And I know that the trend overall is for the climate to continue to change, more extreme weather events for a longer period of time, that 1 year doesn't necessarily change things, but I did want to just ask about that piece of it.
And that's a great question. That's something that I've actually done some research into, like El Nino, La Nina years for us here, specifically in Colorado. And while this is a La Nina year, we're trending more towards a neutral phase at this point, which is going to hopefully improve things, which is why it's looking a little wetter maybe as we head through April here. It's not going to help us completely, but any moisture is good moisture. It's not a bad thing by any means. But it's an interesting thing that there was like a massive area of high pressure that kind of posted up in the southwestern U.S. and that pushed the jet stream just high enough for it to just dry us out like crazy this entire winter. And that is a pattern that happens often with La Nina. It's interestingly not always the case, because we've had some really like wet La Nina years. We've had record like snowpack at times and like a lot of snow. With that being said, I think the hope is that we can get some more moisture next year, but then again, it's kind of the thing that we had, I think about 2.5, 3 years ago, where we had a very wet kind of end of the winter into the spring, and then the summer just dried out completely. So as much as that would be a thing to see a good some moisture, there's also the other side of that coin. The hope is that we're going to head back to more of a neutral and then head to maybe an El Nino phase, which may give us some more moisture through the summer, which would be a better thing for us, helping with some of that fire mitigation potentially. And then I think we might just have to see where next year goes. I mean, like it's a question for us.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
We just have to live to see.
You just got to tune in on tomorrow morning.
Oh, no. Excellent plug. Can't believe you got it in there. Oh my gosh.
I have a question.
Sarah.
This is wonderful to have all of these experts here. So born and raised here, I survived the blizzard of 82, Y2K. How do I prepare Mina for this potential, this wildfire that's going to hit?
So, start with your emergency notifications. Make sure you're signed up so you're getting the information you need when you need it. Be prepared to leave. We call it a go bag, and that looks different because so many of our documents are virtual right now. But your prescriptions, be prepared to be kind of self-sustaining for 72 hours. Know your evacuation routes. So that's preparing for yourself. And the second part of preparation is prepare for your family. What happens if it's in the middle of the day? Do you have kids at school? What does that look like? Do you have pets? Do you know your evacuation routes? Do you have a communication plan? What if you can't communicate? Do you have a meeting place and somebody out of town that you can touch base with, that everybody knows? And prepare your home. The intent of all of this is that your house can withstand a wildfire. We know that the resources it takes to save a home that has been mitigated versus a home that's not been mitigated is drastic. So do what you can. Often there are more structures exposed to wildfire than we can cover at one time. And so mitigation's not a one and done thing. It's really a commitment that we need to be addressing continually. And so knowing where to start and then continuing building on that and maintaining it is just critical.
And don't leave your electric vehicle in the path of the wildfire and abandon it. That is one of the worst things that you can do, both from a fire perspective and an environmental perspective.
And y'all have done a great job of talking about technology. It's always improving, and apps. What are some technologies that you yourselves are incorporating in your mitigation work?
Pick me. So, great question. One of the things that I didn't get to talk about, and this is our main focus as a utility, is to prevent a utility-caused wildfire. So it's all the system hardening that I talked about, the operational mitigations. We're also adding weather stations. So in addition to our meteorological talent, we're also adding weather stations all around our service territory to help us better predict the weather. And then we're using artificial intelligence cameras. Pano is the camera that we've been using, and we've partnered with our first responders. And this is to detect wildfires at the first sign of smoke. You think about seeing smoke off in the distance, and you're not able to really tell with any precision where that's coming from. The Pano AI cameras are able to use artificial intelligence, GPS technology, to be able to be more precise in, first of all, determining what that smoke actually is, and then determining where it is more precisely, so that first responder and firefighting resources can be deployed quickly, so that if there is a fire, it can be suppressed very quickly. Thanks for the question.
And thank you for that, Robert. We can attest to the benefits that that has given. We can show up at the right place with the right equipment far quicker, having those eyes on the ground right when we are alerted. So yeah, that's been a great tool for us.
I hadn't heard about that, so that's a great question. It's amazing. Do we have any other questions?
Thank you. All right. My name is Carrie Larson. I was wondering, we've heard you all speak about the opportunities at a governance level, at an organizational level, and an individual level. But I think there's some opportunities that exist both from an emergency management perspective and from a wildfire response and impact perspective at the community level. So I was wondering if you can speak to how you can rely on your neighbors or other organizations in your communities, and potentially what the impacts could be, both beneficial and negative, of what your neighbors are doing or what other people in your community are doing.
I can start with that. So you hit on something that is really, really critical. And one of the things we've talked about in Denver is the neighbors helping neighbors concept with that. And that can be everything from helping to shovel a neighbor's sidewalk in a winter that doesn't look like this winter, but in other ones. But neighbors know their neighbors best, and particularly if there are individuals that we talked about, you've heard the term access and functional needs, people that are electrically dependent or people that have mobility issues. Their neighbors often know best, and they're the ones that can help them. So I think there's a number of ways to be able to do that, in terms of there's the community emergency response team CERT programs that a lot of the counties in the metro area have very active ones, and can even take that down to like a neighborhood level of doing trainings within the community to help them take care of their neighbors.
Yeah, I can elaborate on that a little bit. FACO is a fire-adapted Colorado nonprofit organization here in Colorado. They have a neighborhood ambassador program. So I have neighborhoods in my community that have kind of a individual in that community that is super passionate and connected with that community. FACO puts on a 6-week training for these individuals. And I support those individuals. Those individuals are going to be so impactful, and they are working with neighbors, because we're only able to mitigate our own property. We can't do anything about our neighbor's property, but when you bring the community together to work together, it's far more impactful. Recently, I just heard figures that, and this is generally speaking, it would vary a lot by property for sure, but generally speaking, it costs $2,000 to mitigate an acre of property. But to suppress it is 10 times that. That's $20,000 per acre. And this doesn't consider any recovery costs. So imagine if there's one home on that acre. Imagine if there's multiple homes. You can't imagine how these costs quickly add up. So being proactive versus reactive is definitely has its payoff.
That was great. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you to all of you. We have come up against our time. I'm going to kick it back over to Dan Diamond, but I appreciate all of you being here and all of these really thoughtful questions. Thank you.
I just want to take this opportunity to once again say thank you to all of our panelists for all their time and their commitment and their ongoing commitment to our communities and to our neighbors. And I hope you walk away today feeling like you understand a little bit more about what we each can do to support each other and our neighbors and our communities. I'd also like you, if you get the opportunity and you want to see this conversation again, to please visit our website, rmpbs.org. And a lot of the organizations you heard about today, we have links and access on that page to those organizations, so you don't have to scramble around and try to find where they are or how to locate them. We have those informational tools available to you. So with that, I want to thank you all for your commitment and time, and ask that we all leave today with a plan, at least in the back of our mind, and some next steps forward, because together we can make a difference and get through this and have a beautiful, better Colorado as a result. So thank you all again, and we look forward to seeing you. This is the first in a series of 4 of these that we will be having about partners in prevention and wildfire preparedness. And so we will let you all know when the next one is, and we encourage you to send us your feedback and your thoughts as well. Thanks for being here. Have a fantastic week and a beautiful weekend ahead.
Colorado wildfires are increasing, getting stronger, and causing more damage than ever.
So we have to adjust to reality and change how we approach things.
That's why Xcel Energy and Rocky Mountain PBS are teaming up to share knowledge.
We need to get rid of our optimism bias. It can happen anywhere. This is about taking responsibility to our communities and our customers if and when there is a wildfire.
Learn more about Coloradans adapting to wildfires at rmpbs.org/wildfire.